Welcome to the first episode of Culture Check, the show where we dig into the past and present to see how culture has shifted and sometimes how it's done a complete 180. Today's topic, has society become too sensitive? And to answer that, we're diving into a surprising arena, cartoons. Specifically, cartoons of the early 90s and how drastically different they are from the cartoons airing today. Let's start with a quick time warp back to the early 90s and even a little bit before that. In the early 90s, TV ratings for kids shows were minimal. Most didn't get formal ratings until the TV parental guidelines were introduced in 1996. Before that, studios had enormous freedom, while parents were just worried about us being too close to the TV. And even Disney, yes, wholesome, pastel-colored, family-friendly Disney, produced content during World War II that would make today's viewers' jaws drop. Talking about the 1943 cartoon, Der Fuehrer's Face. This is the one where Donald Duck appears in Nazi Germany and even salutes Hitler. But here's the part that most people forget. It was anti-Nazi propaganda. Donald wasn't supporting the regime, he was actually mocking it. And the whole short ends with him waking up relieved to be an American. While still the visual of Donald Duck doing the Hitler salute is something that would never ever be produced today, not even as satire, that alone shows how radically acceptable boundaries have shifted. Now, jump to the early 90s, and the tone was still wild. You had Ren and Stimpy with grossed out humor and adult jokes. You had Animaniacs with political parodies, innuendo, and edgy stereotypes. Tiny Toon Adventures, along with Tom and Jerry, with slapstick humor, guns, and violence. Darkwing Duck and Goof Troop with cartoon violence treated as fun, not dangerous. And Looney Tune reruns with dynamite, guns, racial stereotypes from older episodes. One episode in particular, Southern Fried Rabbit, where Bugs Bunny disguises himself as a slave to get by Yosemite Sam.
Well, it's one of our boys.
The sun shines bright in my old Kentucky home.
Hey there, boy. How about giving out with something peppy on that there skin box, huh?
Yo. Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony.
Yankees Doodle?
Put a carrot in his hat and called it the carrot.
You traitor.
Don't beat me, massa. Please don't beat me, massa. Don't beat this tired old body. No, no.
What's this I hear about you whipping slaves? But, never mind the buts. Here's my card. Look me up at my Getty.
And most of these were simply labeled TV Y7, meaning okay for most kids over 7. Now, we look at a sort of middle ground where the jokes and crude humor aren't as wild as the early 90s, but definitely aren't as suppressed as today. With SpongeBob SquarePants, the early episodes mentioning self-harm, but usually had absurd, silly jokes with adult jokes and bullying. One episode in particular, Midlife Crustacean, shows Mr. Krabs invading a woman's house and violating her privacy.
This is more like it. Give us some credit, old man. We're penny professionals.
We score here all the time.
Frilly things. We hit the jackpot.
Oh yeah, Mr. Krabs!
Woo-hoo. You finally came through for me, boys. I feel young again.
Eugene,
Mother?
what are you doing with my bloomers?
Well,
The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack controlled weirdness, not crazy vulgar, but had dark tone, creepy imagery, and body horror. And Chowder had grossed out humor, heavily body-shaming jokes, and chaotic violence with adult jokes. Fast forward to today. And things are a bit different. A modern TV Y7 show will often avoid all the slapstick harm, the mean language, negative stereotypes, certain jokes about weight, gender, or appearance, controversial historical settings, and anything else that could cause online backlash. Today's shows emphasize emotional learning, inclusivity, soft conflict resolution, identity exploration, and representation of most marginalized groups. And one of the biggest differences we see today is some modern cartoons even include non binary characters, sometimes even animals or anthropomorphic creatures. For example, Adventure Time features Bimo, an often interpreted as non-binary character and voiced by non-binary voice actor. She-Ra and the Princess of Power introduces Double Trouble, a shape-shifting non-binary character. Has Been Hotel and other modern animated shows have anthropomorphic or creature-like characters who identify as non-binary or gender fluid. And Ridley Jones presents a character named Fred, a bison who is non-binary.
My heart says that the way I feel most myself is to go by the name Fred. That's because I'm non-binary, and Fred is the name that fits me best. And I also use they and them, because calling me a she or a he doesn't feel right to me.
These characters reflect today's cultural conversations about gender identity, something that simply did not appear in 90s children cartoons. For some people, that shift is proof that society has become overly sensitive, while for others, it's a sign that society has become more inclusive. Many people hold the argument that society has become too sensitive. And from their viewpoint, old cartoons got away with far more. War satire, violence, edgy humor, even scenes like Donald Duck saluting Hitler for comedic effect. Today, cartoons avoid anything potentially offensive, even jokes once considered harmless. Some viewers feel that modern cartoons prioritize messaging over entertainment, making them feel restricted and overly cautious. They argue that shielding kids from all the discomfort may reduce their resilience. To them, the shift from slapstick chaos to emotional dialogue symbolizes a culture that overcorrects at every possible risk. But there is another side, and it's worth hearing. Many older cartoons did include harmful stereotypes, violence, and insensitive jokes. What we call sensitivity today is just awareness, a recognition that media affects kids' understanding of the world. Representation of LGBTQ, non-binary, and diverse identities helps children feel seen and accepted. Removing cruel or stereotypical humor leads to a healthy emotional development. And modern shows like Steven Universe, She-Ra, Avatar The Last Airbender, and The Owl House prove you can have depth, excitement, and inclusivity at the same time. In this view, today's cartoons aren't too sensitive, they're simply more thoughtful and considerate of all audiences. So, where does that leave us finding a middle ground? Maybe the question isn't, are we too sensitive? Maybe the question is, are we balancing creativity with awareness? Are we protecting kids without overprotecting them? And are we evolving without losing the fun? We can acknowledge the 90s definitely had some humor, freedom, and chaos that we rarely see today. But today's cartoons have depth, inclusivity, and emotional intelligence the 90s never even attempted. Both eras gave us something valuable, and maybe the ideal future is that one blends the best of both worlds: imagination with kindness, freedom with responsibility, and storytelling that respects the past while embracing the present. Thank you for joining me on this trip through cartoon history and cultural change. If you liked today's episode, subscribe, leave a review, and tell me, are we too sensitive today, or just sensitive enough?